August 7th, 2015 meeting of the New York State Board of Real Estate Appraisers to order. Thank you. Oh, there you go. Perfect timing.
No, that's not him. He's just.
Yeah, I call it. I call the meeting to order. Why don't we start in New York with introductions, and then we'll pick it up in Albany. Ernest, if you want to start.
Yes, Ernest Delaney, Enforcement Unit, New York Department of State.
Ernita Gann, Enforcement Department of State.
Bill Smolin, I'm a New York State General Certified Appraiser, and I'm president of the Columbia Society of Real Estate Appraisers.
Hi, Bill. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Carol.
Carol DeSanto, board member, vice chair.
Lillian Levy, board member.
Mary Jo Moore, Licensing Services.
Jody DeLallo, Department of State Licensing.
Dan Burnett, Enforcement Unit Licensing.
Donna Zoller, Education, Department of State.
Carol Fansler, Department of State.
Keith Simon, Department of State. Mark Mastrobuto, Department of State.
Claire Brooks, Appraisal Subcommittee Policy Manager.
Vicki Metcalf, Appraisal Subcommittee Policy Manager.
Dave Mossberg, Department of State.
Whitney Clark, Department of State.
Steve Raffaello, board member, sitting chair. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for traveling, for we needed to travel to get through our agenda today. Let's see. I'm going to call. We don't have a quorum announcement. Subsection 2 of our meeting agenda. We'll go back to New York for enforcement. For Anita.
Okay.
Take that. Thank you.
Yes. Since January of 2014 through July 2015, the licensing has received 89 real estate appraisal complaints, 5 more complaints from the previous year. There are 52 open cases pending resolution. 15 cases were closed as a result of no violations found during the investigation. We had 1 suspension, 1 revocation, 4 consent orders, 1 warning, 1 withdrawal. There were 12 files that resulted in fine assessments. The source of the complaints were from either lending institutions, appraisal companies, government institutions, and or the public. That's my report.
Okay. Are there any questions of the enforcement report? Okay, I would call for a first and a second. Board members accept it.
Call to accept the report.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. So cleared, though we don't have a quorum. Okay, moving through the agenda. Under section 3, we have the appraisal management company legislation, which my name has on it. So we've been going through this. I'll thank first and then talk. Carol Santo, Becky Jones have done a Yo Persons attempt putting this together over the last 3.5 years. I think it's as thorough and as complete as I imagined it when we started it 3.5 years ago. I believe that everyone has received a copy prior to the meeting. At this point, I would take any questions on the Appraisal Management Company Registration and Regulation Act, Executive Law 6H. Are there any questions or comments from anybody at this point?
I don't have any questions, but I would also like to really thank the members of the subcommittee. We've enjoyed working with you over the past few years, and I know you put a lot of hours into this. And I think it's a great, thorough legislation. So thank you very much from the department. We couldn't have done it without you.
We couldn't have done it without you either.
Ditto.
Ditto. Right back at you.
Okay. There are no further comments or concerns. I would like to speak individually and possibly on behalf of the boards. I'd like to reflect other board members who might have comments or concerns. I would like to recommend at this point that to Whitney and anyone else of the staff that is required to get this thing up and moving. So on the October meeting that we have, and we will have a quorum, that we can vote this through and start moving forward. I know that in discussions with Whitney and with Vicki that Foundation is not making this a requirement, but at this point, I feel individually and collectively that this is thorough, it's well done, and I think we need to regulate the AMCs. I think we need to establish guidelines and ground rules, and I think it's so thorough, I think we need to move forward. That would be my recommendation. And I ask for any comments from any standing board members or subcommittee members at this point that you might have.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. Of course, we've done an enormous amount of research of issues within the appraisal management companies that have failed. We've also researched other states. We've taken some recommendations that came out of the Appraisal Subcommittee also to go back and look at the changes that other states made to their legislation. We also took a really hard look at protecting the public in this, and I think that that's really important, that there's parts of this piece of legislation that also is transparent to members of the public, and that's over and beyond what the Dodd-Frank Act asked for. And I also think whether or not the Dodd-Frank, I know there's discussions of in nationally right now, whether that will move forward, but this piece of legislation needs to be done to protect the citizens of New York State, and I feel very strongly about it. And I appreciate the opportunity to have worked on this for the last 3.5 years, and all of the people that I've met along the way, both on the state and national level, who have given us insight to try to write a very thorough piece of legislation. And we're hoping this all moves forward. Thank you.
I have no comments. I thought it was done really well. I didn't see anything that I would want changed.
Becky? Rebecca?
Good.
Okay, my final shot is this. This started as a bunch of ideas based on a bunch of research that Carol and Becky really did in 16 or 17 different states, Appraisal Institute, taking all this into consideration. We wrote a rough document. I really have to commend Whitney, Jody, and the DOS staff for taking what was a bunch of ideas from perspective of protecting not only the public but the appraisers and the users of appraisers, and making it a living, breathing document that we could change as we go along. I think sometimes, looking at it as appraisers, in discussions we had with AMC CEOs and other individuals who are outside of the appraisal world, we sometimes look at it with blinders on. And we had specific things that we wanted put in here. And Whitney and the staff took it and kept our original charge, but left it open enough so we can change it accordingly as we go forward. So I'd like to thank everyone for all their hard work on this document. It's been a long process, and I hope that once it's through, people can see it and appreciate it. So our recommendation now is to move it forward. So in October, when we voted through with our quorum, that we're that farther ahead in the process. Thank you, everyone. All right, moving on to the agenda, mandatory licensing. Gee, I'm talking an awful lot today. Okay, mandatory licensing. I reflect back to Carol and Becky because they've done the old person's job again. We've moved both of these pieces of legislation forward, AMC being on the front burner right now. The licensing bill is pretty good. I mean, we're pretty close, I would imagine. I think because of 99, 2004, 2007, we had some foundation with this bill. I think we had some parameters to go with. Again, if you look at the Pennsylvania AMC and the Pennsylvania mandatory licensing, they marry well together. I think we've kind of used it as a framework, but we've brought some of our own specific language into it. So at this point, I think as soon as the AMC legislation is stamped and ready to go, you're not going to find too far behind. I think in 16 and 17 that we're going to introduce a licensing bill. Right? Are there questions or concerns from anyone at this point from the staff or from the board on licensing or comments they'd like to move forward? I'm sorry, I haven't deferred to New York. I apologize. Is there anything in the mandatory licensing bill or the AMC legislation you guys would like to comment or question?
No.
Steve, I just have one thing. Am I permitted to? No, not till the end.
That's a public comment.
Not until public
Thank you.
comment.
That's public comments.
Thank you, sorry.
We're gonna get to you. Don't worry.
Okay,
I didn't
thank
forget
you.
Okay, so if there's no one from the committee, subcommittee, or staff that's any questions or comments about the mandatory licensing bill, at this point, that's about where we are. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to new business, the appraisal experience review appraisal. David, would you like to
Public comments.
field that?
Sure. Last year, we had revised one of our regulations concerning appraisal experience to comply with some new UV standards and also to remove, at the time, what we thought were unnecessary burdens to receiving licensure based on some of our staff reviews. During that process, we removed a provision regarding crediting a certain amount of hours for review appraisals. We still follow our past practice, notwithstanding the revision, and then we were considering whether or not we should specifically reintroduce language to specify a certain percentage of qualifying experience that review appraisers can accept or that we would credit. There is currently no AQB standard that says that we can't accept full credit subject to the maximum amount that's allotted, and so we're still sort of reviewing, developing a proposal on that. So that's where we stand, I guess.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments to David from New York?
No.
So, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but so we should have good regulation for the board's review in October?
Yes.
Is that, so we're drafting the regulation?
Right.
Yeah, so we took the percentages out of the regulation, we inadvertently removed it from the provision where we really think we need the percentage hours still in there. It had to do with review appraisals. So at our October meeting, we'll have some draft regulatory language for you to look at and hopefully move along.
Questions or concerns from the committee, subcommittee, or staff individuals that are here? Okay. David Whitney, thank you for your information on that. At this point, I would open up the meeting to public comment. New York, do you have any public comment?
If it's all right, I had a couple of questions regarding the AMC legislation.
Can you reintroduce yourself for people that?
Okay, my name is Bill Smolin. I'm the president of the Columbia Society of Real Estate Appraisers.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
The 48th president. And we were founded in 1945 on the campus of Columbia University. And my question was, regarding the AMC legislation, will there be a point that appraisers and consumers can look at the legislation before it gets finalized, or is that not part of the procedure?
It is a public document now that it's been released at the full board meeting. So certainly, please feel free to take a look at it and provide us with any comments that you have. Oh, Ernita, do you have a copy in your meeting folder?
First one released to
This is
everyone.
Bill, you have the first one released in the
public
state.
copy out.
And we'll be posting that on our website as well.
Yikes.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Just one quick question on this. Was this amended at all as an aftermath of the final rules that were published by the federal
Yes.
agencies, or it
Yes.
was? Okay.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill, for your input. Anybody in Albany, public sector? I see no one. Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Jones? Ms. Jones?
Thank you, Steve. My name is Rebecca Jones. I'm from Binghamton, New York. I'm a practicing appraiser and have been working on the subcommittee with the AMCs. I was debating whether or not I wanted to bring this up, and I think I need to, because I think it's something that's going to be in our future. With the residential appraisal world and our scope of work with FHA is now producing a new 4000.1 manual and the property characteristics and the HUD minimum housing standards. I was in Philadelphia at one of the training meetings and asked this question also. What they're now requiring for residential appraisers when it comes to the property characteristics, lead-based paint, handrails, soil type, things like that, it's expanded tremendously. They actually have it written, they want us to observe, analyze, and report these property characteristics. My issue is having a husband that's a licensed home inspector and also a trainer. We train the appraisers and the home inspectors. When you look at Article 12B under New York State appraiser or home inspector licensing, they're just observing and reporting. Where they're going to require licensed and certified appraisers to observe, analyze, and report. And when I stood up at the Philadelphia office and made this comment saying, here I am as an appraiser with my requirements and home inspectors are down here, so I'm actually elevated higher with that analyzing of that characteristic, where in New York State, the home inspectors are only required to observe and report. What should we do about this? Can we come up with some kind of commentary within that report? The comment back to me at the HUD Philadelphia office was, well, you don't have to do FHA appraisals. And I kicked back and said, well, I'm also a trainer. How do I teach my appraisers in New York State? Well, they don't have to do FHA appraisals.
Who's going to do them?
So I have a concern, and I'm just bringing it to the board. I don't have an answer, but it's a concern. It's our future.
Have they defined what they mean by analyze? Yeah.
In that property characteristics, I can look more into that. I actually have the manual in my car.
What's involved with that?
We can get
that. May be getting into engineering.
Yes, absolutely.
Because when you read, the home inspector law is pretty straightforward. The home inspector law is really, and it literally is observe and report, observe and report. You won't, we're going to be testing appliances now when it comes to the FHA standards, where home inspectors, that's not part of the home inspection law, is appliances.
Well, you see, because the FHA doesn't require a home inspection. They require an appraisal, so they're probably trying to shift some of the burden of the home inspection to you.
And that's my concern.
Well, my immediate, and we've discussed this before, my immediate response would be, within your scope of work, is to limit don't leave it up to them to define what the analysis is going to be. That should be defined in your scope of work. And the analysis that I'm leaning toward is any market effect would have on estimated value by an appraiser I am not determining the viability of whatever they consider the analysis to be. So it seems like a limiting scope discussion from the appraiser's purport, from the appraiser's occupation.
Well, if they're saying they need to analyze soil, you need equipment for that. There's
or appliances. How are you?
Yeah.
Engineer. I never turn on an appliance. That's about it.
Well, in your scope of work, if you describe your inspection, then you're limiting what they can allow you, what they can expect from you.
What I was.
And they have to accept that scope of work.
Can you limit the scope of work?
Yeah, sure.
We can, however,
as long as you're not in violation.
And I guess that's what I'm looking for.
They may be defining the scope of work, though.
That's what I'm looking for. We need a standard set scope of work, maybe within New York State, so we're not crossing over to that home inspection status. I guess that's what I'm looking for. If we could have some type of addendum that we could give to New York State appraisers so they can amend their scope of work.
Yeah, but you're talking about FHA, something federally regulated. Does it supersede anything you might establish in the scope of work?
Well, that's going to be up to each individual appraiser, but at least we have a tool for our New York appraisers. We have a tool for our New York appraisers. I don't know what the answer is, but it's an issue.
It's going to be an issue.
It's an emerging issue.
So is this a recommendation at this point?
No, it comes effective September 14, 2015.
Is that the pushback date?
It's the date.
Okay, they pushed it back once, the implementation of this.
Yep.
And for that reason? Or
No.
among other reasons,
Not the standards. They're not even worried about us.
No, they're not.
Not even worried about us appraisers.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we?
We gotta look at it.
I don't know what the solution is.
Why don't we establish a small subcommittee in which we can do some research and we make a recommendation in October as to what we might want to do in reflection to that.
Okay.
I'm sure other states are looking at it.
Yeah, we
and
can't
have
be the
same
only ones
issues.
that have
Right.
this problem.
I think individual appraisers all over the country are looking at it and what action they're gonna take or not take as of that, which could change the whole face of audit if all of the appraisers cannot refuse to do it.
I'm actually concerned with that comment because when we were in Philly, there was very few appraisers that were in attendance and they're not
Yeah,
doing
they
any
don't-
type
they
of
don't
training.
know yet.
For the HUD and FHA is not doing any appraiser training.
Do you think they know there's a difference in what they're required to do?
Yes. Oh, for sure.
Not for lack of knowledge.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
I helped educate them on that 2 weeks ago in Philly.
We don't know that.
But there probably are a lot of appraisers who have not been educated on the manual yet.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yes,
You know,
that's what I
states,
thought
do you
you
think
did.
people
Yes.
are aware of it?
Oh, the other appraisers?
Yes.
No, I'm
No.
sorry. I thought
They
you
may
meant
not be
HUD.
up in arms because they
Yeah,
not.
they don't know yet.
The mechanism might be is we haven't done a newsletter, or at least, maybe we can do an email blast through our license,
Right.
through our
And ask for
licensees.
comments.
And ask for comments, or we can
Oh,
put something
there you
out
go.
on the website, educating them. But I still think
Good
what we
idea.
wanna do is take a step back, take a few months to digest what's out there, educate ourselves, and come up with something constructive.
Right.
You know, and maybe if, like you said, it becomes a grassroots situation where if you have enough people that are now starting to, and they comment on it, it's gonna pick up some traction.
Okay.
It's a good idea.
Great. Thank you.
Could I just say one thing on that issue? Because I think it is important for appraisers. However, almost every environmental factor that affects us, we're not qualified to test for it.
Exactly.
Asbestos, lead paint, radon, you name it, we're not qualified to test for it. Only, you have to, as a matter of fact, even the inspectors that are qualified, they have to send it out to a lab in order to confirm what they believe. So it's the type of thing, all along for years, we all have been faced with this problem, and basically we say we're not qualified, and we're not.
Well,
So,
the problem with that is they put the word analyze, which is new to the FHA HUD world. Observe, analyze, and report. We've never seen that analyze within the property characteristics before.
Well,
You know, Bill, given the size and scope of the Columbia Society, maybe it's something that you could call me on later in the week, and we can maybe you can put something together with you guys too, because obviously you have a lot of members, and you know we have a lot of influence, so maybe we can look at that also.
Maybe analyze wasn't meant to be what everybody's assuming it was.
Well, that's why you're asking them for a definition. They don't
Right,
have a
and they
definition.
That's why I
That is-
traveled to Philadelphia and spoke to the woman in charge of the appraisal division that did have no understanding of USPAP whatsoever and analyze. And she says, well, you're analyzing all the time. And I said, no, you're not understanding. You're specifically having me analyze property characteristics.
Does it say that, or does it just
Yes.
say analyze?
It says analyze when it talks about the minimum property standards, which are the property characteristics. It's a whole definition or a whole section just on the physical characteristics of the real
So maybe
estate.
you're just, maybe analyze doesn't mean scientifically. Maybe they just mean discuss it further.
Well-
Instead of just noticing.
They want me to define the soil type.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's scientific.
Yeah. Yes.
Muddy?
Brown.
It's so much that,
No,
you know,
I do farms and land appraisals, and I do analyze soil types for value.
Mhm.
But my concern with this is, you don't know what the subsurface is. You don't know, and
No
how deep
licensed
you go,
engineer.
and how, you know, it,
How deep do you?
yeah, it's very scary.
I know this is becoming a discussion because my E&O insurance providers, I'm talking about it, and limited liability, they're gonna cover you if you make extensions beyond your expertise.
Yep.
So becoming a hot point,
Yeah.
is something we need to address.
Subcommittee.
James, oh, you just wanted me, you just got off of one, you just wanted
So you can kind of open it up to other members of the Columbia Society or any other groups who are interested in helping you
Yes.
guys out.
Yeah.
We would love that.
Bill, if you would like to sit on our subcommittee, you're more than welcome, we invite you to.
okay, sounds good.
All right, good. Okay, if you can,
You Skype, right, Bill?
Bill, if you
The
can
what?
get your,
You Skype.
Uh, yes.
We'll get you there.
Bill, if you can give your contact information to Ernest, and then Ernest, if you can get that to Carol, just so we can put the information with the subcommittee contacts, we'd appreciate it.
Yes.
Sure.
All right,
Perfect.
thank you. All right, if there are no further comments for public comment period, I would move to our next agenda item, which is the Appraisal Subcommittee Audit Report, and I turn to Vicki and Claire for that. Welcome, everybody, by the way. Appreciate you guys coming.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here this week. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you as board members. Because we do believe that your role with the program is quite important. And we know they pay you a great deal of money.
We were just
Yeah.
talking about
We
that.
still believe-
We still have to give our financials every year regardless, so.
But we do believe that your role is intricate into the whole system, because that's exactly what Claire and I are here doing. We're here in our capacity as the federal agency that oversees the National Appraisal Regulatory Scheme and our ongoing efforts to make sure the states are functioning in a manner that's consistent with your charge under Title 11 of FIREA. I know you all are intimately familiar with Title 11. It sounds like you're very well versed in it all. But I'll just kind of go over a little brief overview of what we've been doing this last week. I have some materials that Claire passed out a little earlier that I'll be referring to, and then we'll kind of go over our findings or our conclusions as right now regarding the status of the program. So first of all, this is something that we do on a regular basis. We, meaning the Appraisal Subcommittee. The subcommittee is the federal agency over the national regulation of real estate appraisers. We were created back in 1989 as a result of the first S&L crisis or financial crisis our country encountered in recent years. Of course, since we've had yet another one happen, but we were the result of the first, and the thought that Congress believed that the appraisers needed to be regulated at the state level, and it required and needed to have a federal entity that oversaw that national regulation, which is our entity. If you'd like to know more about our little story, where you can find it on page 7 of the annual report that I provided to you. With that said, we are charged with doing a few different things, meaning the subcommittee. The subcommittee is made up of members of each of the banking regulators. In fact, you'll see the names of those on page 11 of the different entities. The high-level individuals from each of those agencies are sit on behalf of our subcommittee, much like the boards do on the state level. So they meet once every couple of months to make decisions regarding the program and what we're finding in the states and the like. And they work with their jobs in those different agencies on a day-to-day basis. But we, Claire and I, and the other members of the subcommittee staff, which you can see listed on page 13, work on a day-to-day basis to carry out not only the charges from the subcommittee members, but just again, our charges under Title 11. Amongst the things that the subcommittee does is we maintain the National Registry of Real Estate Appraisers. We offer grants to the Appraisal Foundation, which has its two boards, the Standards Board and the Qualifications Board. And of course, the Standards Board promulgates USPAP, and the Standards Standards Board, right? The Standards Board qualification promulgates USPAP, and the Qualifications Board does the AQB criteria, which I've also given you a copy of the most recent version of that. It's a paper copy because they haven't actually put it in print yet, but our staff was kind enough to make copies of the most recent one that's out there. There'll be an actual hard copy version that will be published from the foundation a little later. They're still in print. But we wanted you to have the most recent one, and I'll be referring to that a little bit in a few minutes. But again, we offer the grant to the foundation in order for them to prepare those documents and then of course make other decisions on behalf of the appraisal industry. As they were identified in Title 11 as an entity that was already creating some uniformity in the appraisal industry, and they were essentially anointed to create federal law. by creating these two documents. What they set forth in those, in the criteria and in the standard are tantamount to federal law. All the states have to adopt, at least at a minimum, what's set forth in each of those, and enforce based on what's in the criteria, what's in USPAP, for example. And if all appraisers are supposed to follow it if they're licensed or certified, and the like. So it's kind of an unusual setup in that sense. In addition to that, we ensure that the states have licensing and certification programs in place and are following what's in those documents. And so that's kind of why Claire and I are here. We're performing our regular compliance review to make sure that we believe all is being done in that respect. This is something we do on every state and territory at least every 2 years. And it's just a time for us to sit down, read all your laws, rules, regulations, see what's been going on in the way of issuing credentials and the like, and then make any comments about how we feel things are going and areas that the state may approve upon if need be, and also identify areas of non-compliance if we again feel that there are those types of areas as well. With that said, I want to walk you through a couple of things that you might find interesting in our annual report. As I said, Claire and I are members of the staff, and you'll see our staff, the names of our staff members are on page 13 of the annual report. You'll see we're a very big agency, but we're probably among the smallest there's a few others that are they're smaller than us, but we are we have 12 people listed. We actually added another person last week, so we're growing. So we have 13 people, staff people, so we're very accessible and really are available if you have any questions, not only you as your role as board members or as we've already told the staff, but those of you who are members of the public, please don't hesitate to contact us as well. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or direct you to whomever you feel might be helpful in your efforts to work on your subcommittee or the like. So that's the staff. Another thing I wanted to point you to is on page 57. And that is a chart on how we're rating the state. So basically what happens after Claire and I leave today is we write a report. We write a preliminary findings report that we'll ask the state to respond to within 60 days. And then once we receive that response, the response and our preliminary findings will go to the subcommittee, and they'll decide what they want to bring back to you in the way of a final compliance review. And based on the final compliance review, you will be also awarded a rating. And it will fall in one of these 5 categories. And so I just wanted to point you to this page, so as you go through the process or you get copies of the report, you'll kind of know where New York stands within these ratings. The final compliance review and the rating will appear on our website and in our next annual report as well. Another thing, just other things along in this same section are just things that as individuals, appraisers within the state or in general you might be interested in, are just statistics about different things, about where other states rated when we reviewed them last year, and basically it covers the previous year's reviews. So where they rated in the different states, it's not all of them there. All of them are listed on our website, however. And the statistics on how many appraisers are in the different states. And another thing that we maintain in addition to the National Registry is a hotline, a national hotline for real estate appraisers and those who might be concerned about appraisal-related issues. And so it's some statistics on the hotline and its activities as well. So it's just some reference materials. I know a lot of times when board members teach, they like to consult to those kinds of this kind of data. If you keep scrolling on back, you'll see a copy of Title 11, which is on page R5. And I point to that because I know you're very engrossed in dealing with the AMC things as well. As you know, Dodd-Frank amended Title 11 very significantly. The amended version of Title 11, including the Dodd-Frank provisions, is the version that you have in this book. And we will eventually be taking up the regulation of AMCs. The final banking regulations were just issued in June. They become effective on, when's the 10th? Next Monday? Is that right? Yeah, they become effective next Monday. So 3 years from next Monday, so the August 10th of 2018, if your state has elected to adopt AMC regulations, those regulations would have to be in place, and statutes and regulations would have to be in place, and you would need to be implementing the program by that date, or requesting an extension from the Appraisal Subcommittee if you have difficulties getting that finally adopted. If you opt not to, then you don't need to do anything. So it just is just letting us know. It would be nice to know which one you're selecting. You don't need to declare it, anything officially. It would just be nice to kind of know what way New York ends up going. So I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up on those dates, and we can talk about that a little later if you'd like. If you keep scrolling on back, in R17, there are policy statements. And our policy statements are what I'm going to go flip through as a guide to our findings for this particular review. So right at this point, I'm going to stop and ask if you have any questions of me, and if not, then I can just go through our review findings. Do you have any questions?
I'm interested in the review findings.
Okay. Well, as I said, we have been troubling your staff for actually a few weeks, because what we do in preparation for our visit is that we ask for a great deal of information. So Claire and I could study up and see what's been going on. So they've given us copies of your statutes and your regulations, all the people they've issued credentials to in the last 2 years, all the individuals they've received temporary practice permits, and all the education courses that have been approved, your meeting minute from the last meeting that you had, in addition to all kinds of other things I'm sure they can tell you. And then in preparation, and complaint logs and the like. And from the information that they sent, we were able to study and identify certain files that we wanted to look at while we were on site. And so, again, in response to that, they kindly pulled all the files and records and downloaded them and everything so that we had them available for our review. And we have been doing that for the last week and looking at all that material and asking lots and lots of questions. Everybody's been fantastic. You have an excellent staff here, and you should be very proud of the individuals that you have working on behalf of the appraisers here in New York. They are I can't really speak more highly about the program and the people that you have working here. And as much as we put them through, they still handled it with a smile, even though I'm sure they were talking about it. but that was very nice of them as well. With that said, I believe we have all that we needed to get in order to, and all the questions that we had answered. And so we have come up with some preliminary findings. This is still a fact-finding phase of the process. And so if you have any questions or concerns or whatever, please feel free to voice them as well, because we are still gathering information about how things are functioning here. With that said, I will start with our policy statement 1. Policy statement 1 is about standard statutes and regulations. And as I said, we've been looking at your statutes and regulations, what you have in place. When we were here the last time, we had some comments about the statutes and regulations. There's some regulatory changes that amendments needed to be made. You did make those amendments. As a result, we don't really have anything that you need to change regarding your statutes and regulations at this time. We have given David and Whitney a list of things that if you should back into the statutes, particular statute, at some point, like if you're adopting the MC stuff or whatever. We have some cleanup things that need to be done, just to make it more consistent with what's called for, or just clearer references. Sometimes it references, for example, the subcommittee when it really should be the qualifications board and the like. So we've given that information to them, but other than that, you're functioning appropriately and statutory and regulatory wise, it's fine. A good thing with your statutes, just to point out, is you do have several provisions that just overall refer to the AQB criteria and say that whatever is called for in the criteria is what you would be following. So that's what we use as being more helpful, and find those to be important things to have, so that you don't have to make these itty-bitty references. It changes until the statute is actually opened back up again, maybe for other things. So again, all is well. I appreciate your making those corrections that they called for as it goes to the last review, and again, all is well in that area. Temporary practices policy statement 2. You can flip one over to see that. You'll see in policy statement 2, and with all the policy statements, we have the statement itself, and then we have an area we call summary of requirements, which are just a highlight of the key things that we're looking for with regard to each of the policies. And those are some of the things that we've been checking. Well, those are all the things we'll be checking for when we're looking at the files and the like. Temporary practice is handled well. It's all being processed in a manner that's consistent with what we call for in our policies. So we'll have no finding, have a finding of compliant in that area. The National Registry is the next policy statement. The National Registry is the database, of course, of all the appraisers who have ever been licensed or certified in all the states and territories. And it also contains disciplinary actions that have been handed down by the states regarding each of those individuals. With the National Registry, you have to collect a fee for everybody who's licensed or certified in your state. It's $40 for each year. And of course that fee is passed on to the subcommittee, and we look at how we're making sure that we're getting our invoices paid and getting our data submissions of all the individuals that you have credentialed here and their status, and we're getting that appropriately. You're supposed to submit information at least once a month according to our policy. We actually get them every week from New York, so you're even going above and beyond what you're supposed to do in that respect. The only thing that we will probably have as a comment in our preliminary findings report regarding the National Registry, potentially, and we're still getting them checked out, is that we have a couple of disciplinary actions that we believe that have not been reported. Not many, but there are a few. So I have contacted Jody and Renita, and just to make sure that they think that they need to be reported, and then based on that, there may be a finding in that area. But by and large, we have been getting disciplinary actions reported to the registry. These might just been a few oversights. So that's it with the National Registry. Any questions? Arnita, did you get my email?
Yes, we did. And,
okay.
We will be working on that and getting back to you with it.
Okay, thank you. The applications. Application processing is another area that of course we focus on, and in general we believe that applications have been processed well. We only had one issue that kind of surfaced regarding the applications, and it has to do with the exam certificate, or the approval that's issued for individuals as they go to have approval to sit for the examination. And we understand that when individuals have had their education and experience approved, then they're issued a certificate to go take the examination. And there is not an expiration date on that certificate, so technically they could go and take the exam at any point in time in the future. The criteria does specify that exam approvals are only supposed to be valid for 2 years, and we identified at least one person, possibly two, that had taken the exam well beyond the 2-year period. It was during the rush of everyone trying to get through before the start of the 2015 criteria changes. But in talking to staff, we understand that there were probably a number of other individuals that fell in that same category, and that in exploring it further and in further discussions that we found that they don't actually have an expiration date, and there's not necessarily there wasn't necessarily anything in the system then. There may be now that that prevents people from taking the test if their approval was received more than 2 years prior to them being examined. So we will note that this is something that you would need to, this is a finding, and in your response you can explain what has maybe been done in the system since, because we understand there might be some things that were done with the 2015 criteria changes that may have addressed this, but describe what may have been done or what will be done in order to keep people from feeling that they have 3, 4, 5, 6 years to take the test after they've been approved. I think that was it with applications. Then I'll reciprocity is policy statement 5. Policy statement 5 is something that is now mandatory for all states to offer reciprocity, or at least have a mechanism. If they don't, then have explanations of why they have not. That the explanations have to comply with
pages.
explanations have to comply with what's called for under Dodd-Frank and those amendments to Title 11. And so with that, I don't even really need to go much more into this for New York, because you've always been very good about offering reciprocity to individuals who are properly credentialed in other jurisdictions. So you were functioning well in the past on your own accord, and now when we are making sure that you're following the Title 11 requirements, you definitely are following those, and actually are more liberal than most. So we appreciate that. And as far as policy statement 7, that's enforcement. Of course, that's a key feature for us in that we believe that of course, enforcement is very important to make sure that you are properly handling complaints that you're receiving about appraisal activity within your state, and that they're being handled timely, and they're being handled, and in a fair and equitable manner. All in all, we found that those two factors were definitely being met. The complaints are being managed timely, in fact, I think we were pretty close, Arnita, in the numbers that you had, and you gave out, if I took them down as you were giving your report. But I had, and let me flip over here. I had that you have received about 127 complaints during this last 2-year period. Or since it was really not completely 2 years. We were here in October of 2013, so a little less than 2 years. But since October of 2013, and that you had closed about 153 cases, because that included some that had been received prior to that time that were still in process. And you have about 48, I had that you had 48 open. I think you reported 52, so it's...
Yeah.
might have gotten several new ones since we last got along, so that might be it. But with that, there were only 2 that had been in process for more than a year. There may be one other one, but either way, timeliness is not going to be an issue in this respect. It appears, which is excellent. This is one of the big areas that we end up having issues with regarding most of the jurisdictions to some degree. 1 year is a benchmark that we use to evaluate the states, and we say 1 year barring any special documented circumstances. And we've defined special documented circumstances in the policy statements, but it's typically like somebody has appealed a decision that's gone to the appellate courts, or if it's been gone to the Office of Administrative Hearings, which is something that you do have as a process, and some other things that we consider special documented circumstances. Those are exempt from our 1 year evaluation of a program, because we know that a lot of times that's kind of outside of your control to a degree. We will ask, of course, more efforts to be done, for example, if it's a hearing issue, to make sure that you're following up and those kinds of things. But other than that, we realize that those are things that you're not in control of the schedules and the like. So we have other things that are included in special documented circumstances, and I encourage you to read those. But with that said, timeliness is not going to be a concern of ours with respect to this. That does kind of, since I mentioned the hearing issue, one thing we did find out with the CE audits, however, is that there were a couple of hearings that have been referred for hearing, and it has been quite a while since they were referred, and they have not been heard. I think the oldest was from December of 2013. So we will make comment regarding that, and ask that you just follow up and maybe find out why those have yet to be heard. Other than I have not included those in the numbers and audit, even the audit information, because in addition to the counts that I've given for enforcement, it appears, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you do keep the audit activity separate from the enforcement, because the audits tend to go once they have determined that individuals need to be potentially disciplined. It goes straight from those that are auditing to the hearing.
Your process, correct?
Right.
Yes.
So they don't really go through investigations and so
Right.
I'm keeping them separate, the numbers separate. Is that an accurate way of handling it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Good. So we'll kind of treat them separately as well. Perfect. So in that arena, again, I will, and I guess the last comment that we would have regarding enforcement would have more to do with documentation and tracking, and that again is still kind of going along with this, making sure that whatever's referred over, it seems like particularly to hearing, that you do find out the results of it, and or they enter into consent agreements, that all that documentation is kept together and in one place and the like. We know you have it and it's in your systems, and I think it was a little difficult getting it all together and when we were trying to go through things because they were not kept with the enforcement files. That was fine because everybody was able to produce everything we needed to make it a determination about the cases, each individual cases, but again, just in documentation wise and keeping up with the complaint log and the status of things, we'll make a comment about that. But your enforcement program is running beautifully, and as with everything else, as I said before, can have nothing but really positive things to say about all that are involved in your appraisal program. And pleased to be here as always. Claire, do you have anything else that I missed? Did I cover it? Good, quickly. See, they make fun of me because I talk a lot, and I'm sure that the staff already knows this because I've already had very long meetings with them several times. So I'm trying to be better with you guys.
We appreciate your brevity.
Okay, thank you. With that, and you didn't have any questions of me of anything I said?
Actually, I just correcting because I don't know what ER is. Could you tell me?
Oh, a CE, those are a continuing education.
Oh, continuing education.
Oh, I missed the C.
I'm sorry. Continuing education, when they, you randomly, people.
Electronic audit. I'm sorry.
You need 28 of them.
Yes, ma'am. We do way more than that.
We did meet with key individuals from your, not only from your staff, but from the administration, basically, about AMC regulations and just giving more information about what may be called for. As you have already talked about, the regulations have been put out there. We've already talked about the effective date, and that you of course have the option of whether you'll do it or not. And we have a copy. Whitney has given us a copy of the rules, the proposal and proposed statutory changes. And of course, I have the one that you handed out today. I have offered to make comments and have our attorneys possibly make comments on it as well. And we'll get those back to you, so that you can make sure that all the things that have been covered, that need to be covered, are in here, or at least to the best to what we know about it. It's all still really, really new for all of us, and so we haven't gotten clear direction and made clear decision really about what exactly we are going to be doing in response to all of this, and in general what needs to be done. The good thing is that the regulations are out. If you mentioned, there are a number of states that already have AMC regulations in place. There are 38 states that do have AMC regulations and statutes in place. 37 of those 38 are actually implementing them and have been doing so for some time. With that said, because most of this began well before or during the time Dodd-Frank was being adopted, let alone the fact that since the regulations even aren't effective yet, it means that most were even preceded. In fact, all of them preceded the regulations that were finally issued. So every state, I would be willing, in fact I know, every state is going to have to make some changes, even though they already have statutes and regulations. Just even if it's minor tweaks or whatever, but they will still have to make something. And those that are adopted much earlier, like Vermont in 2008, and
Florida,
yeah,
a huge one.
Yeah, they'll have a lot that they'll have to change if they want to continue. So, yeah, so it's so don't feel like you're behind the gun. Actually, you're doing this right on time in the sense of handling it because it is something that we didn't know what was going to be required until they determined what was going to be required. And so now that we know what at least is going to be required from the banking agencies, you have it right on time. So I know you've been working on this for it sounds like a few years, but don't feel like it was all for naught.
Oh no, it's perfect timing.
Your timing is great. So if this is what you're wanting to do, so we will look at this and get those comments back to Whitney, and hope that helps. And again, if you have any other questions of us, please don't hesitate to ask. In fact, what we are doing is gathering questions at this point, particularly regarding if you should opt out, what would the consequences be, those kinds of things. So if you have questions along that line, or just as you're encountering your efforts to adopt this, please ask me now would be great, or like I said, shoot me an email. My email address is Vicki, V-I-C-K-I, at asc.gov. Again, we're really little, so our emails are very simple as well. It's VICKI at asc.gov. I normally have business cards, but I failed to put them in my bag, so I apologize for that. With that, you mentioned some things about HUD, and I was going to say that HUD is a member of the subcommittee. I'm not aware of the concerns that you have, but we do have a subcommittee member that, well, she's an alternate. Our subcommittee spot for HUD is still vacant. But our alternate, Ada Before, her last name. I could put, if you want to talk to somebody at that level, give me an email. I can give you some contact information for her. Ada is an appraiser. Actually, her father was an appraiser as well, so she's well aware of appraisal activity. I know you seemed like you were disappointed with the HUD people you were dealing with before, but she would probably be willing to talk to you and maybe answer any questions that you may have along those lines.
Are there any questions? Thank you for very thorough. I'll give away a little bit of my age, the fact that it's got to be 10 years. And I recall, I don't know if you were our representative at that point or not, I don't think you were, and the meetings were about 3.5 hours of what we're doing wrong and what we're required to do to make them better. These meetings are much brighter and lighter. I think it's a good reflection of the people that work at DOS that we deal with day to day, Whitney and Carol, Jody, and everybody that's here, and other people that aren't here. And I think we got to the point now where it's nice that we can have a free flow of information back and forth that's beneficial for both of us. So we appreciate your input here and anything you can do for us as we move forward with different things that we're working on. Okay? We appreciate everything. Are there any other questions for Vicki from New York?
I have a question, if it's all right. Recently, for a long time now, we've been dealing, as appraisers, we deal with doing appraisals under USPAP. Recently, it's come up within the industry, within the profession, that other standards are being promoted for appraisers to do appraisals. And I'm just wondering if I'm not trying to promote the Columbia Society, but we're one of the sponsors of the Appraisal Foundation, and we support USPAP. And I'm just wondering if the Appraisal Subcommittee, is involved with this issue and whether or not they've taken a look at it.
We are not involved with the issue, and we are not taking a position either way with regard to that. I am aware of what you're talking about. I know the Appraisal Institute, for example, is promoting some standards, and some state laws have been amended to possibly recognize some of those standards. With that said, what we look at is, and what's called for licensed and certified appraisers, according to the Appraisal Qualifications Board criteria, is that appraisers follow USPAP for federally related transactions. And actually the banking agencies have that as well. So for lending activities that are federally related, there's appraisers supposed to follow USPAP. For individuals who are wishing to get licensed or certified in the states, the criteria requires that that work product be USPAP compliant. So, and of course, appraiser, and again, going for lending activities. Anything beyond that if a state law changes and there's ways that, or other things that have to be followed, that's going to be kind of on the state. But, and that's more of a state matter, but we are not involved in that.
Okay, thank you.
Again, thank you for all your enlightened discussions. Okay, if there are no further comments or concerns at this point, I would call for a motion to adjourn.
So
All in favor? Aye.